Welcome back. We're on season 2 of the New to You show.
New to You show.
With So Bad It's Good and Starship Troopers. Welcome to the second season of the New to You show. I am one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week,
I'm another host, Keith Allen Vincent.
And a third host,
Jules.
So, John Holt, what was new to you since the last time we spoke?
A whole lot of things, I'd imagine. But off the top of my head, actually went and saw some movies, which is good. You know, but again, not as many as I should have. So, you know, the Lego movie is probably the one outstanding movie that I saw recently, and that still came out before the year was up. So.
I haven't even seen it yet.
I didn't see the Lego movie.
It was good.
I'm sure it's great.
It was very fun, surprisingly so. One of those ones where I don't want to hype it too much because I want someone to go in
without any expectations.
Yeah, because not that it'll give you lower expectations and therefore less of a payoff. More that I felt that it was really good, like a movie, like a kid's movie that they haven't made like that.
Wow,
in a
that's
while.
real poetic. Really good.
Really
John gives it a really good.
Really good.
You know, he thinks he eats his fruit gushers. He goes, I think it's a try.
That's real good. That's a try. That's a definite buy. Yeah, well, it's not just like slot that away. I saw that movie, walk on kind of thing. It's one that I think I'd watch again. I don't know. They're sequeling it already, I'm sure, but I don't know if that's necessary. But it was one where I would have even gone back and watched it in the theater if I had time to. If there weren't 15 other movies that I should have been seeing.
So nobody saw the new Wes Anderson movie. Did you see?
That's another one.
It's on my to watch list.
We should go see it together because I really want to see that movie real soon.
I think I've seen all of his movies in the theater.
Wow.
Except for Bottle Rocket we saw, but I mean it was late.
I didn't see
later.
Bottle Rocket, but I've seen every other movie of his.
That was we saw it as after it had been released as a later run kind of thing. Yeah, but still,
I didn't see that in the theater even after.
But that was one of the only ones since they've been released in the theaters. This is the first one that I haven't gone to yet. So
we'll see that because that's
the Darjeeling Limited Theater.
I saw it in the theater
as well. Yeah,
I saw it on video.
I mean, again, for some, even if the movies are only okay or you question his directing on some of them,
they still look cool.
The visual, he just becomes more visually
I would
rich.
say, out of a lot of filmmakers that have come and gone since him, he is the most surefire. Everything, only Darjeeling Limited is not a masterpiece in my opinion. And I don't even really like that movie at all. But other than that, every other movie is on my top 20 list.
And that's
easily.
And that's some people, they can't stand Life Aquatic. That's a big sticker for people.
Taste is taste, and it's fine, and it is a very peculiar. Right. It's got its own language, it's got its own thing. But I mean, for me, it's I can't watch it enough. I know that movie by heart easily.
So my new thing though that I want to get into, I downloaded for play the South Park the Stick of Truth game for the PC. It's on Xbox and all those other systems, but it is effectively like you're watching the show with a little interaction kind of thing. I mean, it's not so non-interactive.
It's not on rails,
but it looks like the TV show.
Yeah,
that's not hard to achieve, I imagine.
Right. But yeah, I think when you're walking around the town, I've just seen videos, but it's definitely the most watchable video game. As someone who's watched a lot of people playing video games throughout my life,
me too. Yeah.
I think it's the most watchable video game I've ever seen. It's because it does feel like you're watching South Park in this funny way, and every interaction has jokes in it. But when you're walking around the town, it does feel a little bit like video gamey, more than everything else. But when you're inside, interiors, inside buildings, if somebody walked in, they would just assume you were watching the show. It's that spot on. And they got all the voices, and I'm sure they got really involved in the crafting of them. It's great.
And it's based off of the spoof episode where what was it, World of Warcraft that they were spoofing, or was it?
No, I think it was a Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah. I think it's kind of influenced by they've done a few show and video game type spoofs, and I think that's part of why it's such an easy fit. Why it doesn't feel like a weird branching off or a sellout. Because even some of the Simpsons games that some of them were really good, but they still it wasn't a shoe-in like this is.
Well, what helped the best Simpson game was that Hit and Run. It was an open world game. It was GTA with the Simpsons. So basically,
I never played that. That's
you get to explore the entire town of Springfield and run into all the characters, and also steal cars and smash into stuff. And so it's like a cartoon version of Grand Theft Auto with all the fun characters and all that story and characterization versus just the generic like random woman 3 with skin 4 kind of thing that you run over in Grand Theft Auto.
It was neat, but it still felt like a translation, whereas this just feels like almost like the same thing. Which, again, I think it's because they do the way they make the show. It makes it easy to do that.
And it's just the fact that it's kids at play and you are one of the kids at play. It all melds very cleanly and it's pretty fun and silly. And the jokes are good. Yeah, very fun.
Wait. Are you saying new to you go check out Lego Movie or new to you go check out the South Park?
Lego Movie's probably out of the theaters now.
No way. I bet you can find it still. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, maybe by the time
I'm
this
saying
airs.
my new to you. I'm saying since probably the last new to you, like when season 1 was ending, I was kind of just after that I had seen the Lego Movie, and as season 2 is starting, the thing that is new to me is that, and I did nothing else in the middle. Nothing at all.
What else is there to do? There's nothing else to do. So
all right.
So South Park, what is it? Legend of the what stick?
The South Park, the Stick of Truth.
Stick of Truth.
Yeah. PC, Xbox, PS3. I don't know.
So
if
is
it's
it
on
one
the
of
new
those
stuff.
Xbox Live? Like you can order it from or do you buy the actual?
I got
disc?
it on Steam. You probably, a lot of the Xbox stuff you can just get now.
the
I just got it on
downloads.
Steam. It's not on the Mac yet. But,
Okay.
we'll see. So yeah, Jules, what about you? What was new to you?
Well, it's been a while. It's been a lot of new things going
Yeah.
on.
What do you choose? You got a new haircut. That much I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I just let it grow out and cut it every 3 months or whatever. Be like,
So that's not really new, I guess.
No, but it's cyclical. Well, let's see. New to me, I've seen some movies. I've went to a wedding, a last minute wedding from a good friend of ours, and that was fun. And let's see. Well, so most recently, I saw the movie Mud, which came out a year and a half
Matthew McConaughey.
ago. Yeah, which surprisingly, he's basically like a supporting role. And
No kidding.
Yeah, the stars of the
Is it the
movie.
kids?
Yeah, the stars of the
right.
movies are the kids. It's kind of a coming of age story with all this other interesting stuff going on. And the lead kid, his name's Ty Sheridan Ellis, is awesome. Like he carries the whole film. And he's just he plays this really intense kid who's kind of passionate, and he's 14, so he's right at that age where you're starting to he's getting to starting to be interested in girls and be more adult, but at the same time still free like a kid, still thinks in that way. And so it's a couple of kids, and they live on the bayou, and they basically take a boat to this little island and discover this convict who's hiding out there, and they kind of develop a relationship with him, and the whole rest of the movie kind of centers around their relationship with him. And it's really great performances, really interesting. I recommend it. I was pleasantly surprised. It's a little long. It's 2 hours plus, I think 2 hours and 10 minutes. So, you got to have the time commitment, but it was.
Things are
worth it.
slower down in the bayou.
Exactly. Yeah, it is kind of slow paced, which, is nice in parts. But so it was a cool movie. And
Have you watched any of the True Detective, which is also another Louisiana?
No, I have not, because I don't have HBO.
Or Georgia, I guess. I don't know. Have you watched any
It
of
is.
that,
It's
Keith?
Louisiana.
Louisiana, yeah. Did you watch any of
Yeah,
it?
I watched it all. Loved it.
So let's not get too into it for Jules and others who may not have seen it, but I wonder if
Well, I will say, best acting I've ever seen for a TV show, period.
Whoa.
That movie, that show is,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And this was McConaughey before he got real skinny. He still got some meat on him. in
Yeah,
case
still
you
got a little
cared.
baby fat. Still got
Yeah,
a little
little
baby
baby fat.
McConaughey fat.
some muscle.
Yeah. Well, he's getting it back. Don't worry. Don't worry about McConaughey. He'll be back.
I like it. It's like a new him. Hungrier McConaughey.
I don't know if this
wants it more.
We might want to edit this out. I don't know. This is a little kind of silly offshoot, but my wife works for a company whose LA office used to be Matthew McConaughey's office, and it's right on the beach in Venice.
Wait. He had his own office?
He had his own office for his
What did he do at his office?
He's got a production company or something, I'm sure. Yeah. And so he would go surfing right out on the beach and come back, and they got their showers and stuff in the office.
Wow.
They're using the old, yeah.
Nice.
But I don't know. Hope might want to take that out. That's
No, that's good. That's flavor.
It doesn't.
It's flavor.
It doesn't add an awful lot to the conversation.
Let's seg into not adding it to the conversation. Keith, what was new to you? Oh.
Yeah, there we go. What's new to me is all kinds of things. I went to see a wonderful last-minute wedding at City Hall in New York, which recently I went through this process where I had to go get the wedding license and stuff. And and so you have to go to City Hall. And while you're there waiting to get your license, you're in the same line with the people who are there to get actually married. And I gotta say, it's really actually quite romantic to see the people, dressed up. It's really cute. And they're selling flowers there. They're selling champagne. I mean, New York City's gone a long way to make that kind of an interesting thing. And so you're waiting, and it's this big long hall, and your number is up on the screen when they call you in, or when they call my friend in. And so then we went into this little side chapel booth kind of thing, and a guy's there at a podium, and he's totally just a city, middle manager type of guy, and he does his thing real quick, businesslike. But on the way out, I noticed there were these there was a glass shelf there with a bunch of really old wedding certificates in a book. So I imagine back in the day they had to hand fill out this thing, and so and so got married, so it's got to be bureaucratically entered in this specific way. But I'm taking a picture of this thing, and the guy who officiated this ceremony says that's Babe Ruth's wedding.
Cool.
A wedding entry for his wedding license. So that was pretty cool. But my real new to you recommendation to all y'all people out there, if you're not going to get married at City Hall, is the new Beck record called Morning Phase, which I think is great. I've been listening to it a lot, and I really enjoy it. Some people might think it's a little boring, which I guess is kind of fair. It's definitely slow and brooding and plodding in parts, but I think it's all boring indicates that it's slow, not on purpose. I think that this is a record that's kind of meditative. You put it on, you play it in the background, you do something. It's very it's wonderful, and when you get into the lyrics, they're great too. So
yeah, I gave it a listen. I was surprised. It's felt really country to me.
Yeah, well, Beck has always got that country thing. Yeah. The interesting thing that I learned from listening to another podcast that I wasn't aware of is that his father is a pretty famous string arranger, which I had never known, and I consider myself quite a Beck fan. So his father is a famous string arranger, and he's arranged strings for movies and great tunes that we've all heard of. And his father collaborated with him on this.
Cool.
So all these string songs, there's one specifically where it's just Beck singing and in a string section. There are no other instruments. And so that's kind of a neat element that I think it's kind of a coming together. Yeah. I don't know what their history is, but I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic.
And he's done a couple of, I would say, like slower or more introspective records, like Mutations and...
Mutations is one of my favorites of his, but I will say that Sea Change is one of my least favorites of his, because I think it truly is boring. But this record, even Beck himself says, it's kind of harkens back to Sea Change. I mean, everyone makes that connection, rightfully so. But I feel like it's better than Sea Change in my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, I've only given it a few listens so far. But my first impression was, like I said, like country, and I also thought for him, like lyrically, it was a little more straightforward. Like he tends to be more like his lyrics are often, I don't know, metaphorical or nonsensical a little bit. Wordplay,
almost like pulling words from a hat kind of thing.
Yeah. Which I love.
Me too.
But these felt a little more meaningful, and but again, I haven't like dug deep. But
I feel like in the past his songs have been about jumping from this phrase to the next phrase, and where the meaning is the connection between the two, or the connections that you fill in. Which, as an active listener to music, I always love that challenge. To try to figure out maybe he's thinking this, maybe he's thinking that. But you're right. This record has a lot less of that and a lot more straightforward contemplation. I think it's about, he's a guy who's been successful for almost 20 years now, I guess. So you can't really just talk about the same old stuff. So he's kind of looking out kind of to some bigger picture issues, I feel like. Yeah. And I like it. I love it. Cool. It's called Morning Phase, but morning spelled morning, as if it's a new beginning. Oh. But it's some double entendre, like, is he mourning the death of something? Or is it mourning like a new beginning? That's Beck. He's making you think.
Yeah.
But that's what's new to me.
It was, the way I found out that album was out was at work, we just kind of airfoil, we just stream out music from somebody's computer out into the thing. And there's like on Rdio or whatever, we've talked about like albums that we've talked about being on that. It's a streaming service. You can turn on this thing called like UFM. So like John FM comes up, and I just play it, and it just pulls selections from my
Previous
play history
things.
or like recommendations, like offshoots. And you can make it more or less adventurous, like just be spot on to basically what I've already listened to, or go hog wild and just like take 4 degrees of separation and try something out. And the track came up and we were listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And then so it's out of context, brand new, and I'm like, oh, it's Beck, because you just kind of like tick to it, see who it is, and somebody's like, hey, is this a new Beck? And I was like, I guess it is.
Oh wow! Well, I was actually I don't know if I saw it on iTunes or what, but I
think
knew
you
it was
asked
coming
me
out
about it, like, right after.
the week it came out. I was like, I'm buying that. Yes.
Wow.
Speaking of iTunes, you mentioned something about an iTunes rant. What was
Yeah.
that
Well,
about?
I don't know. I'll get into that.
Let's
some
do
other
it. Let's
time.
get into that. Since we're
No,
back for season
no.
2,
Give me a
let's
synopsis, because now
let's
you
air
piqued
let's
my
air our
curiosity.
Well,
grievances.
see, here's the, so we always come up with these new to you things, and I've been and one of my things I was thinking of was like, well, maybe I'll talk about I got a new workstation at work, and I'm setting up my new computer and my new workstation, and it's kind of starting from scratch for certain things, which is really fun. I like getting on a new workstation and a new work situation because it kind of makes you think about the way you work and what's efficient and all that stuff. And for me, I don't know why. For some reason, I really like that. But one of the things I'm setting up is my iTunes, and so I have a very vast iTunes library at home, and that's that. Like, so when I sign on to, and I signed on my name to this iTunes because I like to listen to podcasts, and so I'm doing it, and it automatically started ticking off my songs, which I guess are on the cloud now. Like I'm a part of the cloud service, but for some reason it won't let me listen to them off the cloud. It only keeps asking me if I want to download them to this thing, which I don't want to do. I don't want to like take up space on a work computer with my probably 30 gigs of music that I've collected over the years.
Right.
So it's really annoying, and it just keeps getting me. Every new version of iTunes I think is worse now, and this is one of the new worst things. It's like it's harder to use. It's less intuitive. The whole service is so much less intuitive than it used to be, and now they feel like they have to have so much imagery on the screen. Before it was just a database list, which was, it made perfect sense. You want to search for your albums, you just click this thing, and suddenly it's in alphabetical order by the album name, and alphabetical, and now it's just this. It's so convoluted,
right,
and it takes up so much space on my computer now, and not just because of the storage of the songs. The program itself is actually probably uses as much RAM as Flash as Adobe Flash, and that's unconscionable to me.
I think part of the problem is that it's their excuse me, it's their like Trojan horse. Basically, I think
Apple's church. Yeah,
part of it is that I think it started because it started with the iPod, and then now the iPhone. Like it became kind of the device hub, which it really was not designed to be.
No,
and so it just, and then they added video, et cetera, and it just was easier for them and for their customers in some ways to make it all into one app. But they really should have started splitting it off at some point.
They should have just said,
made a music
"This is
app.
iTunes, and this is your iPhone hub." That's what they should have done. Is made a separate bit of software that is your iPhone hub.
Yeah, I think music should be an app.
Yeah,
video should be a separate app.
Which on your phone
should be
it
a
is.
separate app.
Which
apps should be
within
an app.
your phone.
Yeah.
When you use your iPhone, it is a separate thing. Like your music is not called iTunes;
Yeah.
it's just called music,
and
your videos is just called videos.
And the iTunes Store could be its own app as well. Yeah, exactly.
Which
like
I
on the
would
devices.
love, because I don't need to be going online all the time for this stuff. They're my songs that I bought. I don't need to be online the whole time.
But I think I wonder if part of it is just because they support PC, and like for the PCs, for them to support multiple apps there would be a nightmare. So it's like people just have to install one thing on the PC.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's for
I don't know
both systems. That's true. I mean, because you're talking about a system where it's like they're plug and play, so they just want everything at once.
Well,
and
they
unfortunately,
should be plug. They used to be more
too much.
plug and play.
It's now
I feel
too
like.
much at once.
Yeah.
Is sort of the problem.
Yeah.
Have you guys run into this where you download you have an album and you go to download it and you actually have to like work to get a few of the tracks because now they're set in a separate album outside of the album. There's some weird stuff like that.
Well,
they've
that's
been doing.
always, in my opinion, with iTunes, that's always been an issue in that where you're like, where do my songs really exist? Where do these files really exist? And that has always been a problem. But that's the same with
and this is a
same
solution
thing.
that you can do and try is that you could put your iTunes library onto a portable drive and just plug that in.
I'm not worried. I don't.
But in terms of like
that's
just
the thing.
having,
This is what I was telling my coworker today. Is like I wouldn't want to listen to my stuff on this computer. I wasn't expecting to, but it shows it as if it is available.
Right, shows it ghosted, right?
Yeah.
It does the same thing on the iPad, which is like confusing because like on the iPad you generally don't have everything downloaded, and like sometimes I'll just have like one movie on there, but now it shows you everything that's available, and it's just the ones that aren't on the device just have a little cloud icon on them.
Right.
So at a glance, it's really hard to tell what's actually on the device
and what's streaming.
right?
Yeah, which is very
that's how
confusing.
these exist on my thing at work, and that there is the little cloud icon.
Yeah.
And so then I think it's logical to assume that means this song will play, but it'll just stream like the radio.
No, it means you can download it.
Yeah. It's really
Well, it's because they don't really
dumb.
have streaming rights yet. I think they started with the radio, and I bet you they'll eventually have a streaming service, which is the future.
Well, I mean, the question is like, how bad do they have to get before suddenly iTunes is good again? That's what I'm wondering.
That's a good question. It makes me think of something. Oh yeah, our show.
That's right. So that was my subtle way of shifting things back. So
you know what makes it really subtle? The fact that you said this is my subtle way of
subtle. I didn't put the B in there. So yeah, again, we're back for season 2. I may try a different numbering thing. So this may be episode 201, which is season 1.
I like it.
And maybe the next one, even though it will continue the theme, might be 202 instead of doing 201B. So I may not do the A and B anymore and just go with
I like that.
All right. So
no A and B.
All right.
This ain't algebra, son.
The A's
this
and
is
B's.
just straight up
Season
counting.
1 was algebra.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
And maybe that's why we got quadratically
Yeah,
less
I like to
people.
keep my numbers and my letters
Yeah,
separated.
just having the numbers, and then you can read the descriptions.
Exactly.
Know if they're related. So we work real hard on those.
All right. So,
Or John does.
So let's move into our first topic. This was a contentious episode. We had actually held off on it and sort of didn't run into it for a while. The question of and this was Mary's concern and why she sort of was like, I don't have a pick for this and this is her conceit, there is nothing so bad that it's good. If it's good, it's like the reason why she likes it is because it's good. So it's sort of the idea of
it's good because she likes it.
Right. Like there's a certain point where if she is enjoying it.
So maybe we should just say we're talking about things that are so bad they're good.
Well, it's so bad.
Things out there where you're like, oh
But she
man,
doesn't
I don't know
believe-
why, but I love this
But
thing.
she does not agree.
She doesn't
I
believe
wish
that
she was-
exists.
yeah, but we got to tell the people out there that that's what we're talking
Right.
about.
Well, I
Yes,
guess what I'm saying
yes.
is that's the extreme to the point where she's like, I don't even have a pick or a call on this thing. And then I think that we're going to run in, I think, to, especially in the various picks that we have this week and into next week, as to like what is so bad it's good and what are examples of those things. And, what's on the fence or doesn't belong in the camp kind of thing. What is trying to be so bad it's good? What is so, what is unintentional? All those things. So to kick this off,
Well, let's ask you, Holt. What do you think about it? So what? We kind of all agreed on this subject matter. What do you think? Why do you think that it would be difficult to say something so bad it's good, or why do you think it's not? Why do you think that it's an easy subject matter? And because we easily found things,
right? I think,
and these aren't even like first level. I mean, we could have easily just named off 15 trauma movies, and said done. But we even kind of went to at least the second level of these.
Yeah, I think that
to try to introduce you.
A lot of that is like some
stuff.
of it is just us redefining or making justifications for the definition. You know what I mean? Like it's campy, it's kitschy, it's
which could have been what we could have called these things campy and kitschy.
Right.
But I think that
not
camp.
all, I guess what I'm saying
camp
is not
indicates that there's an awareness. Camp indicates hairspray,
Right.
where it's like John Waters wants this to look a certain way and to feel a certain bit of crumminess to it, or a certain bit of kind of tongue-in-cheek approach to the subject matter. That's why it's campy. I mean, I love campy stuff, and we can do a whole show on campy, which I love. But I feel like there's another level that this is.
Well, I guess
like a Nicolas Cage
the way I
movie.
see it though is like so bad it's good. Camp for me, camp is especially like low budget campy stuff is people who tried as hard as they could to make something good in some regards and recognized that they couldn't and pulled back. So there's camp.
Sometimes
I don't think
sometimes
so.
people do just wanted to be camp and
Right.
are
Well,
really
see,
into
I think
that.
the
Heavily, like,
word
tongue-in-cheek.
camp indicates, and this is, I guess, why it's good to have this conversation. I think when you say something is campy, then that means they know.
Yes.
So this is why I think that Ed Wood is not campy. He
Right.
tried to make this thing good, and in his opinion, it's as good as he can make it. He wasn't trying to make something crummy on purpose.
And you're talking about the B movie director, not the movie about him.
Right. Which, well, the movie about him had some campy elements to it as well.
But
as
see,
an
I think
homage.
that in camp you can have there's like unintentional camp. It does happen.
So you're
and
saying
there's
that-
there's definition of that too. That,
Well, hold on again. Like, I want to pull it back a little bit and start because I mean, when I was trying to think about this, so basically, so bad it's good. First, you start the movie is bad, and so and that means it can be bad in many ways. Either like the script is bad, it's just bad writing. The acting is bad, the directing is bad. Sometimes it's all of those or a mix of those, or the production values are bad. That's I think often a
or
big
none
part
of the
it.
above, but for some reason it's still bad.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's like a movie is just bad because everything is kind of mediocre and
Or,
it's
like,
almost
mismatched.
worse. Right. So all right, so you start with there. Stuff is bad. Okay, but what puts it in the good category to me is that to me, like, for it to really truly be so bad it's good, and that's where like I realized even my own pick kind of fell short of that, is that it's bad but like you guys were saying, the intention of the people making it was to make a good thing, or at least try their best, right?
To make
that's-
the best thing they could.
Yeah, to me that's part of it. A second one that's kind of important to me is that like it's bad, but it's still somehow like entertaining, right? It's not, because some movies are so bad.
Well, let's get here some examples. Do you have any examples?
Like this podcast, for example. Well, I just draw a blank because that's what happens is when you ask me direct question. All right, so some examples. Well, okay, some example. Well, it's weird because now I'm like, I did some research, so now I'm all poisoned with great examples that I haven't seen. So, like The Room and Troll 2, and I can't think of the.
Well, no,
examples.
you've got to have some movies that we were discussing some.
Yeah, well, I mean, all right, so trauma films we were talking about, and
Well, here's my thing about Trauma. I think they started off so bad they're good and became camp.
yes, because they were doing it.
Yeah,
on
They
they
purpose.
started
became
off
self-aware.
when they
Yeah.
first started. I mean, if you talk to Lloyd Kaufman, or the way he even talks about it, is this is he says this is social commentary. He'll say that about every movie that comes out of that house. And so, but I think that truly with the original, Tromeo, with the original Toxic Avenger, I think I think the movie makers were truly trying to make this movie as good as they can.
Yeah.
And it just turned out to be, a midnight movie fun time.
Right.
And after a while, they were like, well, let's just make those. Let's stop trying to make this thing be real. And that's when I think it became campy.
Well, I
And-
think
and they had
but there is a certain point though where, like, especially in a film is a good example of a place where you have a lot of different hands and a lot of different people working on it. And I think that especially in like a trauma film, you have people that are hungry and are working in earnest, and
Artists,
then,
real artists,
like people who are
back
like
in the day, yeah.
they're working, and even in the most recent films, like they're aware maybe of the philosophy of the studio.
Poultrygeist is their latest movie. They are not taking it seriously. It's called Poultrygeist. It's about a ghost chicken.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is
which is
maybe
just a fun movie.
Maybe
but
trauma
it's,
is like a further thing, or like Sharknado is further afield of this.
Yes.
But there are those movies those are actually like parodies of. Sharknado is a push of a movie where people are earnestly making crazy movies because they think their idea is crazy good, and they're
I don't
pushing
think they are.
pushing
I don't.
it.
I mean, I do believe
Well,
that
like-
there are movies being made that fit that description.
Oh man, piranha dogs. They're half dog, half piranha, and they dig holes and just dig real fast and then eat people. Like some guy is so excited about that idea.
No.
But Sharknado, the Sharknado guys.
Sharknado is a camp like parody.
Yes.
Right,
I think we've gotten to this level where I think Snakes on the Plane was probably one of the first most blatant examples of this, of somebody just going, well, maybe Piranha 3 was probably one too.
I mean, you could argue that the Evil Dead
first,
the
Evil Dead
second
2,
one,
the first one I think he was really trying to make a horror movie, but part 2 he was definitely trying to be tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's kind of in a different zone.
Yeah,
it's a different kind of
right. But he's definitely he's making fun of low budget movies by making a low budget movie that's.
But
funny.
I think that it came around with movies like maybe even Anaconda. I don't really know if they thought this movie was going to be good, but someone said we've got actually a nice budget to make this movie. We're going to make Piranhas 3, and it's going to be an homage to those crappy movies, but we're actually going to have really good effects and stuff in it.
Yeah, but and that kind of like ties into the whole. I mean, I think the other thing too is there's like just the B movie, which is like movies that have always been done like, it's like got a catchy theme or name,
right?
And like an okay budget.
Well, I think B movies go hand in hand with so bad they're good.
Right, like,
definitely.
You can just say, like, you can look at Full Moon's catalog, and those are people who are doing it for the love. They're making movies as hard as they can, and unfortunately, the budgets are not
there's some
great.
good movies come out of Full Moon. That Pit and the Pendulum movie that they did.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're making like
Subspecies series,
like
great.
When Blockbuster, like that was half the shelf of a Blockbuster release was like Full Moon level
Full
stuff,
Moon
like
Entertainment.
Jack Frost, the Killer Snowman, Leprechaun 3.
Those were Full Moon?
I think so. Well, I mean, it's within that.
Well, I remember
realm.
definitely the
even the Puppet
Masters, yeah. But Puppet Master, I think, crossed a bridge too. When it first started, they were trying to make a movie that they thought would be really scary, and then after a while, they just kind of like Leprechaun did the same thing. Yeah. Gremlins 2 did the same thing.
Its camp.
Yeah, and more power to them. Those are great movies. I like them, but I think that's the distinction we're trying to.
I think that. I mean, I think those all are in that area, and really, I think in the end, it's like there's some elements to those movies that are bad, and there's people that really enjoy them, even though they know a lot of that they're not great cinema. So I think they all like fall into that camp.
Yeah.
But I think the shining examples are the ones where everything where they truly were trying to make an awesome movie, and like sometimes they're just total amateurs. I think those can also be like really charming in their own way, and sometimes they're like everything's super professional, but somebody's just like off their rocker. Like Battlefield Earth to me is so bad it's good, although I don't know, so it's also so bad it's bad. But it's kind of
it's right on the edge. I definitely feel
I think if
it
was shorter, I think if you cut it down to like a tight hour and 20 minutes, it would be so bad it's good. But because
that's a good example.
But because they drag it out, it kind of goes into just bad.
That's because it has to go in epic.
If it was an extra hour longer, would the joke come back?
It would. I think
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But so that's kind of like how my definition.
So here's something so you're kind of saying people who are making things in earnest, whether it's
sorry to interrupt, but let's think of one movie that fits this description, where it is a person or where it is a filmmaker or a film crew who are truly trying to make a good movie, and it just ends up being so bad it's good.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I think that movie is bad. It's just so bad it's bad. I can't even watch it actually. But I will say that the Christo movie, what is it called? Bloodsucking Freaks, I think really fits that description.
There.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I haven't seen it, but like everything, I've seen a lot of scenes from the film. I've read a lot about it. I'm just kind of like waiting for the opportunity where I'm willing to stay up until midnight on a Saturday to go see it.
Till 2.
Is The Room, because it was made by an amateur who like had some money and pulled this movie together, and it's totally earnest, but it's bizarre in so many ways because he just has a very unique, I guess,
perspective.
Yeah, perspective, and he's an immigrant, but like it seems like he's trying to play an all-American kind of guy in the movie, and he stars in the movie. Like there's just so many levels of weird in it. But he totally was trying to make a great movie. And even once it started picking up steam as this, like, you know, so bad it's good, like, and became kind of the new Rocky Horror Picture Show, it took him a while to accept that. He was just excited people were seeing the movie and like, that it was making money. And I think now he realizes, you know, really what its place is. But I don't know. I just found that whole thing very fast. And
I can't wait to see that. We got to see that.
Yeah. And it's not, I think part of what makes it interesting too is it's not a genre film. It's like trying to be kind of a drama comedy-ish. Like, so that's
well, I
the
think
other thing
he's
that makes
trying
it
to do like a Brothers Mulligan type movie.
Yeah,
like Ed Burns type of indie film kind of thing.
Yeah. But so if you guys don't know anything, like just YouTube The Room and you will find many like scenes from the film and
interesting clips.
They're amazing, like fascinating stuff.
Fascinating is the right word.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was kind of getting at was, so you've got guys like that. There's an example. So what about, and this is something, there are moments where there are people who are passionate, making stuff that is either like just straight weird because the people don't quite get it. And then there's they make stuff that is very specific. Like, we're making this Christian like thing that we think is evil, but is mainstream culture. And so mainstream culture looks back at it and just laughs because it's one taken out of time.
It's aiming for a niche audience,
right?
But a wider audience will deride
So it's like
it.
it's a focus and a myopic sort of view that
I don't know of any movies like that. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't seen any.
That comes into more like
there's a trailer for one right now, and it's about like it's basically about like a politician who's like, you know, fighting for the righteous side, and it becomes like a political intrigue, and it's like, but he's like got a divine calling, and like it's coming out right now. Hold on. You guys keep talking. I'll look up
like
the title.
chick tracks, and if you want to talk like little comics, that's that sort of like, they're these little snippets. They're the things that you get handed in the subway or whatever.
Little comic
chick
books,
tracks.
strips.
And they're often just like they aren't aware of how corny they are, and they aren't aware of like how. But it's someone doing it in earnest. There's a classic example for like gaming. There's a role playing one, which because people who know role playing and as things become more like broadly aware for that kind of stuff, the joke becomes funnier to the mainstream as you see these people. It's like people who hate Harry Potter, kind of like reading those sort of like things, or watching a movie about how bad Harry Potter, how Pokemon is the devil because of evolution. It's like those become funny, and if someone makes something based on those premise,
well, I think that fits back right into that first category. Yeah, that we were saying.
Well, I guess I'm saying it's like those are finer versions of that, and you get into that with like educational documentaries about drugs from like 60s and 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's someone making something that they're very passionate about and doing it on the budget that their church is giving them or whatever, or their local community. And, you know, it's the most disturbing ones, which are amazing because they're just like little art pieces, or dudes who would have in the 50s and 60s, like terrible time for car accidents in the 70s. They would have CBs to police band and drive around LA and like California and all these in the Midwest listening for accidents and usually get there before the police or the ambulances did and film these accidents and then cut those together with narration into driver's ed videos. Just like these scare
Blood
videos
on the highway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Super
They used to
freaky.
make fun of those in TV shows.
Summer
and stuff.
School was a movie that had that.
Or just TV shows in the 80s. They would have those references.
Yeah,
I
Freaks and
never
Geeks
experienced. I never experienced those videos firsthand, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess too, like just that whole idea of like something. Sometimes it's just because it's outdated. It's like you know, like just a lot of old films, like just because we've moved on culturally, just seem hilarious now. Like the anti like drug like campaigns and all that stuff just seem
like
ridiculous.
This Is Your Brain on Drugs gets just more and more like graphic and hilarious for the more years we get between us.
But before we get too far from the like there's a religious like themed film coming out called Persecuted. I Will Not Be Silent. Well, it's Persecuted, but I Will Not Be Silent is the tagline, and it's about like John Luther, and maybe it's based on novels or something, but it's just watch the trailer. It's coming out May 9th, 2014. Look for
we'll
it.
Be there. We'll be waiting in line.
But it could end up being so bad it's good. I don't know.
Doesn't come out on a Sunday.
It's not inauspicious beginnings. So I guess the distinction I want to draw though is that sometimes there are people who are just doing a job because this movie did well
craft.
Like this movie did well, we're going to make this a movie just like it. Or this book did well, I want you to write a book just like this. Or whatever. Or like this is TV shows going. So then you just have guys who they're making what they're told to make, and there may not be much craft or passion or love, but because it's this weird photocopy of a photocopy version, like they're looking at something and being told, hey, do the best version of that you can. And they're like, sure. Maybe they don't have a budget, but they don't care. Like they have a high budget and they're just kind of passing it off. And I think there's some movies where people are just trying to do that and cash in, especially like back or like early talkies and stuff that have these sort of like, we see all the highlights of movies. We see all the good stuff that has survived these generations.
It's fallen through the cracks, all the stuff that's fallen through the cracks.
And then there's occasionally those people who like sift it up like little weird nuggets of gold and shine, and everyone takes a look at it with a disconnect, and you start to see the stuff. I mean, it's tough. If you guys have an example, I'm going to rack my brain for one too. But
I'm sorry.
Well, I think a lot of those old serials, like the old Flash Gordons, the old Batmans, would fit into that category where they're just kind of just churning them out.
Right.
Hey, we got to get another one of these every week. Yeah.
And honestly, this may even go to like toys, where you just get, it's a licensed property. Somebody just kind of threw it together. The guy is just, it's basically like money decisions made, but just something weird comes out of it. And you get enough distance from it and you don't see it in context with its other products. And you're like, the mask of Casper with like a plastic bib and a Casper costume.
Yeah.
It's an IP cash in, but there's something charming and weird about it.
Well, no, it's like after the fact that, it's only 20 years later that it's charming. If you were a kid and your dad gave you this, you'd be like, ugh.
Well,
I want those masks from Halloween
honestly,
3.
As I get older, too, you look back at some of the stuff that we used to love, like Rob Liefeld drawings. Yeah. And the more distance you get from him, it's like, 5-10 years ago, it was like, oh, God, this is like, I can't believe that we were like redrawing this stuff. like talk about photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Like we were just going down the wrong hole on this one.
But you think it's come around? You think it's so bad it's good?
There's a certain point where you're going to look and just be like, there's a weird charm to the amount of pockets.
I think it's going to be another 20 years for me.
For Rob Liefeld?
Yeah. I got to get some serious distance.
I mean, I do find his drawings amusing now,
Well, there you go. It's already happening.
I mean, that's the thing, because I guess that's where I recognize this is so bad, and I've recognized it for a long period of time as bad, but now I'm distanced enough from it, from where it was almost like my reaction was, this is bad, and I'm mad at myself for like idolizing this garbage for my youth. Now, it's good. And there are some things like that where you catch on it earlier, like those muscles, like I love those Kinnikuman, like they're cheap kind of little
muscles,
rubber things.
the toy.
I thought you were talking about Rob Liefeld's muscles.
You're talking about the collectible toy muscles, the little toy muscles, rubber characters.
And you could argue some of these things again are done with passion or love. Like the muscle toys though are just toys. Like they're just popped out and they're just kind of like, they're
simple
weird,
mold,
funny,
no joints, and like just a rubber thing you could shoot out of a slingshot.
Yeah, and the way they're presented in the US was just like no frills.
Well, I remember the marketing was just kind of like, we don't know what these things are, but you should get them all.
Yeah.
Muscles. It's like you can buy 50 of them. Yeah.
They're so cheap.
Yeah. we have these Garbage Pail Kid trash cans. We're going to put them in there and sell 10 of them. Yay.
That was it. That was muscles.
No other reason for that. So it's just this sort of like, it's something not of our culture, taken out of context, packaged for distribution, and just like sold to kids. And it's bad in that without any context or anything, it's just this weird thing.
But do you feel bad because, we as grown-ups can see now like, oh, that's kind of funny. But really, they were just targeting kids to just market crap to them. I mean, isn't that kind of like nefarious a little?
A little bit. It's cynical, but whatever.
But at the same time, they're still doing that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, talking about like things that are made for a specific audience and therefore it's like hilarious to another, like kids entertainment, there's a lot of gems. I mean, Teletubbies is a big one. It was targeted because like basically like it was one of the first shows made for little babies, and they just want like weird colorful stuff, and so they totally love Teletubbies, which to adults just seems totally trippy, like an acid trip almost. Like it's totally bizarre. I mean, in some ways they're creators must have gotten a little bit of a kick out of stuff when they were making it. It's so weird.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where it's people in the moment a little bit, where they're like, I hope that they just have these like psychological blinders on, where there's like a child psychologist like,
no, I really believe, I bet you that there was, when Teletubbies started getting big, they hired a bunch of people who were like, no, we understand what the kids like about it. We got to keep doing this. It wasn't just some guy going like, oh, they seem to like it, let's keep doing it. It was like, I guarantee you it became a...
Well, I'm sure, but the people who originally made it, I think, like, I mean, there must have been some kind of like creative weirdo involved in it.
Yeah,
like,
I think you're probably right.
So, I mean, I guess...
But he was probably an earnest creative weirdo.
Yeah.
If they let him make a kid's show, I don't know.
So here's an example too. Sorry, I just thought of a doing it for the money thing, like a He-Man or those cartoons from the 80s, especially 80s cartoon, because at least in the 50s and 60s, there was an understanding of like, we're doing stuff on a budget, we're doing as much as we can. We can't really compete with the now syndicated Looney Tunes stuff, which used to be shown in the theaters, even the Toms and Jerry's and stuff 10, 15 years before. Now they want us to do this stuff on TV and turn it out that quickly. So then you get your like people who are making real art out of it and trying to figure out a way. There's got to be gems of that, like people who are falling on their face. But in the 80s, you had people who should have who weren't putting as much of the art in. Or just
I want to comment on this when you're done, but go ahead.
But I think that He-Man is a so bad it's good kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Where you
She-Ra is even so worse it's good.
And it's just there's something charmingly bad about the frame animation, the stylizing, just all that stuff.
The audio, the like very limited sound library that they just reuse. The writing, just everything built into that was just pretty hodgepodge. Well, you know, we're lucky. We live in a time when we have the ability to watch these things again, because for so many years, just the memories of He-Man, because I was a dumb little kid being brainwashed just like the rest of us to think, oh my God, this is an amazing thing. He-Man is awesome. Which maybe there's merit to that. I don't know. I feel like it was more manipulation than it was our tapping into some great quality that's deep beneath.
I think so. But I mean, I think, you know, there was also something truly entertaining and enjoyable about it for us. You know what I mean? There are things that they try to do that with that do manage to fail. You know what I mean?
At that time, I don't think there were.
You think there was a lack of competition?
What was it at that time that was so bad that kids were just like, well, I'm not watching that.
That's true.
Can you think of anything?
There were definitely shows that I was happy to watch and shows that I just watched because there wasn't anything else on.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
I think if you go back even like 5-10 years earlier than He-Man, when you get to like the later Scooby-Doo and like when they had the Batman and Robin type stuff, like Jackson 5 or the Globetrotters cartoons are just like another one of those, almost like the Casper costume kind of thing, where it's an IP just slapped on the process with not much else going on, and to the point where you're seeing the edge of pan cells. That's where like you have a run cycle and it's drawn in the middle of a series of cells on like however many frames for the run. And normally with that you would move the background. In this, they just move the whole cell, and then you just see the edge of that cell moving off frame as well, because it's just they aren't making.
Well, see, this is the bone I have to pick with. So we are all in animation, and I love the field, and I love everybody who I'm lucky. We've worked with some amazing, really fun, great people, and there are very few people that we've worked with other than like the up and ups that I would say are not just amazing people who really care about their art. But there's this interesting subcategory of people who do animation who are really into Spumco and everything that Spumco brought, and they idolize these old
Spumco made
Ren and Stimpy and the Ripping Friends, and
is really
it was a catalyst for a new
John K, the creator of Ren and Stimpy,
and honestly,
is
that's
kind of like
Ren and Stimpy is
the first season of Ren and Stimpy.
But it's like
groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking. It's groundbreaking, and it set a precedent and some tone.
And was insanely influential.
And everything we've seen since then has taken something from that. Right. Even Adventure Time, especially SpongeBob SquarePants, they all owe it back to them. Which kudos.
The only
but I will
big
say,
jump I'd say is probably like that. It goes Ren and Stimpy, and then your next revolution was to a different genre of animation, which was Bruce Timm's Bat. But we can get into animation like that.
Well, and then
day.
you can go to Cartoon Network's influence with the Dexter's Lab.
But
and those
I would
things,
say Ripping Friends, I consider that so bad it's good.
probably. But here's my rant. A lot of people that we've worked with and we know and love and respect, they idolize this fake version of what they imagine the good old days of cartoons used to be that never really existed.
Right.
Because if you go back, Hanna-Barbera was crap. I mean, I love and they were able to make some very quality stuff, but I would say a majority of the things they made was just get it done, get it out.
Right.
It's crap. We don't care.
And a lot of that was like, comes down to budgets. I mean, a lot of the reason, some of it's budget, some of it's like you're just doing the show for the money because you need to keep the doors open.
You're mostly selling Yogi Bear toys. Like,
but see, here's the deal. Here's the deal. No. Hanna-Barbera makes TV shows. They were so efficient at it that they made TV shows for like 40 years. But it hit a certain level where they were then saying, well, let's see how cheap we can make a show, as opposed to what do we need to make the show good. It became how can we make 4 shows this year, 4 different properties,
but I guarantee,
on the same budget.
But I guarantee the reason they were doing that is because, I mean, in the end, they're working for someone else. They're working for studios, for TV networks. And the TV networks are like, well, I'm not like, this is how much money I'm willing to give you to make this show.
I think too, that's also
because
a situation.
That's what brought, like, that's where we got to the 80s where they were just like making crap.
Cartoons basically that are advertised.
Yeah, and like,
no. When we got to the 80s, they were pumping real money into it, but it was because the toy companies were paying for it.
No, they were not. That's the thing.
No. Hasbro was paying for G.I. Joe.
Right. They were paying for it, but like they were still like low budget TV shows.
Well, they're low budget, but not compared to Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, I suppose so.
They weren't low budget compared to Wacky Races by no means.
Yeah, but those.
But that's like a non-IP too, so it's almost the challenge of
Wacky Races became its IP.
That's true. Yeah, but I guess it's like not.
They were
a toy
using
product.
all the IPs. But Wacky Races was using all the old stuff from using a lot of the old.
But I would argue that even though they were more cheaply made, like I feel like Hanna-Barbera like found artful ways of doing things cheap.
Well, here's what I'll say about it.
In the 80s, they were aiming to do like, they were basically like, here, we want an awesome action adventure show. Here's $5.
Well, here's what I will say about, and this is the thing that I as a designer love about Hanna-Barbera. I actually have a ton of respect for them.
Yeah.
Because what I love about them was they found the best ways to work within their constraints, and they created a whole visual language that we still use.
And they made iconic characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were able to use these very dialogue driven shows with very little movement and make them entertaining and good. And we're still benefiting from that, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go back and say, oh, those were the good old days. I'm not going to go back and say, oh, TV today sucks because we don't have Yogi Bear and Quick Draw McGraw on the show at the same time.
Right.
You know
and
what I mean?
That's more of like a hindsight type thing. And
yeah.
And you're picking out the best of the best out of all that stuff. They made plenty of shows that are forgettable.
And there are definitely too, because there's a lot of that stuff going on. I would point to super economics things like Danger Mouse becoming things that are so bad that they're good. Like Danger Mouse is really poorly done, but it's funny and weird and almost funnier and better for being as badly animated as it is. Like that's something too. I can appreciate something for being badly done. At the same time,
I can't respect it because it won't cross for me over to the so bad it's good stage because I'm like, they fed that to us and told us it was good. So now I can't allow myself to think it's.
But if it's so bad it's good, I never respect something that's so bad it's good. I just get a kick out of it. You know what
it just
I mean?
depends on the intentions.
It would just be if you respect it, it's just good. Like
your pick tonight, you think is good, and you respect the filmmaker. I guarantee it.
But I admit that, like, basically, I kind of had to, like, when we originally had scheduled the show, I was kind of like, oh, I need something, and it was the only thing that came to mind that I sort of fit the theme in. Now that I had more time to reflect on it, I realized, I don't really feel like it's that great of a pick for the theme, but I'll still stick to it, and I can talk about it more once we get into it. But yeah, that's a bad example because I don't feel that actually it's...
Because I think a lot of our
doesn't
picks,
quite fit.
I think a lot of our picks are actually kitsch. But that's good because kitsch and camp. But I think that's good because these are people choosing to make things so bad.
But I don't think I think kitsch is not under the camp definition though, because kitsch is usually something that's designed and it's sort of means it's out of context and out of perspective of it's being like Barney the dinosaur is you're looking back on it because it's, you know, arguably it's probably still airing. I'm sure they're still making like milking that purple cow, but it's kitsch in that like it was kitsch back when Seth was making cartoons about it. Yeah. Our buddy Boogie Bagel. So I mean he was he was an early recognizer of things that were kitsch and weird, but I would argue that the people making, you know, Barney are not making it with an awareness of its campy nature.
Well, they're making it because kids love it.
Right. Kitsch is more like out of context and time, something that is like Hummel figurines.
Well,
or
I think
whatever,
we're mixing up a lot of our
perspective.
vocabulary here. I think we're using the same words to mean a lot of the same things.
Yeah, I mean you can interpret a lot of these words, and I've heard kitsch used in a lot of different ways.
Well, twee is another weird one, but I don't know. It's something. So I guess the other kind of question is, so you've got things like I would consider Danger Mouse. Now the animation is bad, but to me that's the part that's so good it's bad. And where I do respect Danger Mouse and is that somebody wanted to make this funny cartoon and they wanted to tell the funny stories they wanted to tell, but they didn't have the means to do it. So at a certain point, like the corners were cut and it is what it is, and it's funny the way they cut their corners to me, and that entertains me because they're trying to like it's like a bad magician kind of thing, or one of those sort of it's a self-aware comedians, you know, nowadays, but that bad magician thing where it's just someone who is trying really hard to because they want to be a great performer and maybe they have good stage presence but their tricks are terrible, that sort of thing. There's a certain point where you're going to keep watching that because there's an entertainment value, and you may appreciate the fact that heck, even the fact that the tricks are terrible makes the other parts of this thing more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like that's something too. There are aspects of something that I feel that can be really bad to the point where you could just say to someone, "This is bad, but these are the aspects I feel that make it good."
Well, that's what we're doing.
I think some of these too. It's like it's tough with some of these early things that we watched as kids. You know, it's tough to say like how much of the good part comes from nostalgia. You know, it comes from like we loved it as kids. Now we see how bad it is, but we still love it. And it's like how much is that? And some of it is like you said, intellectually, we can see like clever things about it.
But I will say, having had the distance of many years, and I feel like there are lots of things that I am nostalgic for, and I own up to that. But I feel like I've shut that off on He-Man, and it is legitimately weird enough to watch as and just kind of I don't know same thing with the movie Popeye, which I think is a legitimately good movie.
The 70s,
but
Robert Altman,
1980
or 1980.
But it's kind of cult now to some degree.
Oh, absolutely. But I will say, like when I watch certain movies like that and like He-Man, I'm like, somebody just allowed them to make this. That is fascinating to me. That they just went ahead and said, go ahead and make it. Keep making this movie.
Yeah. Well, I love too, like that He-Man, I think originally, correct me if I'm wrong, but originally the toys were designed
to be Conan.
And then it got an R rating, so they...
Right, so they were like, we can't make this clean fun. And they were like, well, let's make a thing out of it. And then maybe it wasn't them, but I know some toy companies actually paid the networks to air their cartoons, and the cartoons were basically commercials.
I believe that's apocryphal. That's Thundercats. So what
Thundercats? They paid
I
them
believe
to air
that. And this again, could
I'm
be just
sure
like
every one of them. I'm sure, but
they
were
this
a
one,
toy
Keith,
line,
or they were
G.I.
a
Joe
total
was a
deal.
toy line first.
Well, the story goes for Thundercats was they made the toys, they made the show. They go to sell the show, but nobody wants to pick it up. And
they're silly because that show's great.
Well, that's the thing. So it finally
the opener is amazing.
It's beautiful,
right? But so then they go.
After that.
The networks go. We're not gonna air that. We don't want this. And so they go. Well, look, you don't have to buy. You don't have to pay for this cartoon show from us. We're gonna let you just air it whenever you want to. And so they just aired it in dead time. They just aired it whenever they just needed filler, and just like they do. You know, what's the movie with Jimmy Stewart? It's a Wonderful Life. It's public domain.
That's why.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's why it became huge.
So I'll tell that story after the Thundercats story. So
wait. It's always been public domain?
It's been public domain since it bombed back when they just let lapse.
No kidding.
And that's why it's a staple now, is because you have
people just watched it.
they just aired it because it's
Grew
free.
up with it.
Yeah.
And then it became a classic.
Yeah, no kidding.
And not that it's bad, but it's definitely a little awkward of a movie. I feel like it's not, especially at the time.
At its time, it wasn't like right off the bat. It wasn't like an instant classic. People weren't like, "This is the greatest."
I think
Christmas
that's on
movie.
a lot of people's like all-time greatest movies.
It was also,
list.
I mean,
like definitely on the short list.
It was
of
released
a lot
in
of
the
people's favorite
summer.
movies.
It was it was released in the summer. I mean, it's a Christmas movie with suicide in it. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, they were onto something because more people commit suicide around Christmas than any other time.
So with Thundercats, and again, this
Seasonal
may be apocryphal.
disaffectiveness.
They first they go and they try to sell it to the networks, not biting.
So this is all true. This
I
thing you're
believe
saying
so,
about
yeah.
Thundercats.
So then we go, all right, we're going to make it free.
You know, Rankin and Bass made Thundercats. They're
really?
not a small
Right, but
organization.
It's a
they
toy
got some
company
pull.
that's trying to get it shown. So
Right.
so they go, okay, well, just air it. Here, have it. And so they're airing it, but they aren't airing it at good times. It's not getting reviews. So they're like, we're going to pay you to air Thundercats. You're going to show it in these slots. We're going to pay you to do it so we can move these products. And that is, again, it may be apocryphal, but that's the tale of Thundercats. So
The Tale of Thundercats.
A Tale of Two.
but that, it's similar to the He-Man
4 or
one, where
5.
that's the kind of stuff you had going on there, where you have, I mean, how many articles were there about the environmental impact of all this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys that were going to end up in landfills? Like, I remember
Really?
like 2 or
Wow.
3 articles within the span of like a year.
Oh, get your shovels,
All
boys.
about
They're
that.
coming out with a movie. The trailer just dropped today.
Like a live action movie?
Oh, yeah, it looks terrible.
Michael Bay.
Well, he's,
No.
he's producing it.
Oh.
Executive producing.
So that's, again, Michael Bay may fit in some of his films
Yeah.
into You're So Bad
Oh,
It's
without
Good.
a doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think too. Like
Some go too far, so they're so bad that they're bad, like the Transformers movie. But that's my rant for another day.
I also think like one kind of character. I think we might have kind of glossed on it, and I mean, I think it often comes out around big intellectual properties movies, but I think a lot of So Bad It's Good comes from movies just getting ruined by the Hollywood machine.
Committee.
Yeah,
Right.
death by committee. And it does happen most often with like a big intellectual property, like a popular book series, a popular comic, and they're like, oh, we're gonna rake it in. Like, everybody, like, sometimes the concept itself is just terrible. Like what's the boat game? Battleship, right.
Michael
They're
Bay, I
like,
believe,
oh,
produced that,
Right,
didn't
it's like, a popular board game. Of course we should make a film around it. It's
No,
like,
I
it's
think
a
that was a
ridiculous idea.
I don't think that they start that movie thinking it was going to be made for Battleship.
They licensed it.
Well, this is an excellent segue into Starship Troopers.
Rico, what's the moral difference, if any, between a civilian and a citizen?
A citizen accepts personal responsibility for the safety of the body politic, defending it with his life. A civilian does not.
The exact words of the text. But do you understand it? Do you believe it?
Starship Troopers was, which is my pick, was actually started.
The movie Starship Troopers.
It shares the title with a popular science fiction novel called Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. But the film was actually written and underway under a different title. And
they just retrofit it?
Yes, and they just
Really?
they just licensed it.
Do you know what it was
on the
what
title.
it was going to be called before?
Well, I just had a working title. It was something about like it's like something happened on planet. Hold on, let me look at the original
Planet
title.
Z.
It was the script was called Bug Hunt at Outpost 9.
Nice.
And I mean,
That's a great title.
yeah, and so it was basically the name was just slapped on there, and I think some of the ideas were reintroduced and kind of pushed. But we'll get into that deeper as we dive into the topic, which I guess we should get on to.
Yeah, I
Let's
guess
talk
I
about
want to
it.
bring up one more sort of like, this is what contention for me is, if someone is going out, like they're aware of what is bad and they're going out to make something bad in the hopes that it like will be so bad it's good. Like an example, for instance, Mary brought this up, was Planet Terror, or one of those other like grindhouse
yeah.
kind of movies, Django Unchained, for instance, like where they're
I think
but those are like
Django doesn't count, but I do think that
they're homages to
Machete
it's an homage
does.
or a pastiche, like one of those sort of
Yeah.
like
Hobo with a shotgun, that
Right.
counts.
I mean, those I would say are more pastiche, where it's like we are straight doing everything in our power to make a version of this thing, versus an homage where the difference, just so you know, the difference between the two is an homage is something that harkens to the beloved material, whereas a pastiche is an aim to make something as close to the beloved material.
So Indiana Jones is an homage. Right?
Indiana Jones is an homage to the serials
Gunga Din.
of the day,
Right.
but Spaceman and Robot is a pastiche of the, you know what I mean? But you know, like the idea is that I don't know. You look at another Robert Rodriguez movie, maybe Dusk Till Dawn is more of a homage to the pulp kind of stuff, or the Grindhouse things. Whereas when he's making Death Race or Death Car, that's a pastiche. My question is, if someone is making a pastiche or an homage to something that they're loving because it's so bad that they like so bad it's good. Like again, a Grindhouse thing falls into that for me, where you're watching
Yeah,
those
well,
movies.
I think that it's good because they are using the same so bad it's good formula. It's tough because, you know, maybe the things shouldn't be judged on the same level, but I feel like Starship Trooper, they were purposefully trying to be, and I'm bringing it back to Starship Trooper, even though you're saying let's talk about this, because I think it's an example of they're using tropes from old war movies and things like this, homage, if you will, and even pastiche in certain places, I guess. But I think the end result, it still has that same quality of so bad it's good, like even right off the chopping block.
Yeah, I think it's a tough cat. Yeah, again, I think you can argue it fits in the category, and to me, it certainly does. But I feel like it's not the like the
it's not the prime
shining
example.
right? Yeah,
Right.
Because I think lack of awareness, lack of self-awareness, lack of intention is part of what makes so bad it's good to me.
So, and this is my
Yeah,
other
but
question.
I think that there are
otherwise it
other
should-
categories. I think
I think
there
it-
are categories that aren't just that. I think that that's one category of so bad it's good.
Yeah,
and
to-
I think that there are others as well.
But to me, that borderlines on just being good. You know what I'm saying?
Because you have the intention to
Because they
Yeah.
succeeded in exactly what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. So then are they making something good? So then here's the other question. What about when someone takes something that's bad, or maybe it's so bad it's good, but it's so obscurely bad? And my prime example is going to be like Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they just take a bad movie, like Santa Claus versus the Martians, or, Mitchell. And
Mitchell.
they
Ma, Mitchell.
So they put their commentary on it and sort of highlight the badness. Could you, so sometimes when you're watching a movie, like Full Moons are these examples where you're watching something someone's done in earnest, and part of the joy you get out of it is it's a little bit of superiority over the filmmaker.
What you're saying is that Mystery Science Theater tapped into this thing that we all love, which is watching bad movies and making fun of them. That's why a lot of them are so bad they're good.
And that's another interesting thing is that I feel like some movies that are just so bad, period, can be made good by the context in which you watch them.
Yes,
by watching
yes.
them with friends and making fun of them. Like, you bring the good to the bad.
Right.
And that's what
And I would
MST3K
say,
did.
yeah, and that's what they had their same friends every time.
Yeah.
Like we have this friend that named Brian Jones, who we hope will be on here. And let me tell you, you bring him to any movie, it's going to be good because his laugh is so infectious.
Yeah.
We got almost booed out of a theater watching Transformers. Part 3.
And there's moments like that too, where I've got my buddy Todd, a similar kind of thing, where we went and saw this back when they released the Star Wars movies again as the trilogy. We went with him and his brother, and they have the same infectious laugh kind of thing. And every time Luke speaks, they're like, and that's a different kind of thing where they're sort of like they're throwing mud at this beloved idol kind of thing, which made it that's another level of sort of,
It's like having jokes.
it's another moment in sort of mocking. Like, it's not this pristine target. There's bad things about those movies because of the time and the limitations that they're working with. They're not bad movies by any stretch, but there's no reason why you shouldn't laugh at the bad things in a good movie just as much as you laugh at the bad things in a bad movie.
Yeah, and in the end, like, for all this talk of good and bad, it's all very subjective.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
So it's really...
It's subjective on top of subjective.
Yes.
Because whether or not something's good or bad is just subjective, and it's a part of its context. And then to add on top of that now you've switched and made it subjectively good in your mind is like 7 layers of subjection.
Yeah. And I think that's why, it's a good topic for discussion because, not everyone's going to agree, etc.
In a way.
All right. So Starship Troopers Showgirls is a film that came out in 1997, directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Neumeyer. I don't know how to pronounce that exactly. And Paul Verhoeven is, I think, a pretty famous Hollywood director. I mean, I think his shining moments were in late 80s, early 90s. Like,
I mean, it was like his top 4 movies were that period of time.
Yeah, I think like Robocop, what's the Mars?
Total Recall.
Total Recall. I mean, those are the
Showgirls.
Showgirls. Another show. That one is probably more so bad it's good than my pick. And etc. So I think I actually do love him as a director. I like a lot of his films. And I think
Did he do Running Man?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Another Arnold sci-fi movie. So it's basically, so it has the title, which I said earlier, based on a book, but it turns out that after doing a little digging, and it's actually, and the reason it's not a lot like the book, there's quite a bit of straying, is because it kind of like was started out as a different movie and then was kind of like shoehorned into being an adaptation. And I don't know, maybe they had the rights hanging around, and they thought it would be a bigger audience draw.
It got licensed in 90. So it was probably one of those books that like the license was kicking around and somebody was,
Or it was about to expire?
Yeah. So a quick synopsis for those of you who haven't seen it. It's basically about it was kind of prescient in a way of kind of like 9/11-ish kind of stuff. But essentially, humanity's started. It's in the future. Humanity started expanding into the universe, and they've come across an alien race of kind of like spider-like or like arachnid type aliens. And I think it's sort of implied that they kind of messed with their planets or whatever. And so
No, these bug guys are constantly shooting their spores out and colonizing other planets.
Right, yeah, so it's kind of a mix, but I think there was like some undertone that the humans kind of started the fight, and so they were kind of retaliating, trying to defend their territory kind of. Anyways, they end up attacking Earth and destroying one of the lead characters, Rico's like kind of home world and their
Buenos Aires,
and killing his family, and so he decides to enlist, and he's fresh.
He was already enlisted for the wrong reasons. Remember,
Right,
he
right.
enlisted. He
Oh, that's
enlisted
right.
because he was in love with a girl who was enlisting.
Right, so it's
and he was about to like ice out or drop out or something.
So, and a lot of people at the time said it was like, 90210 goes to war because it was cast by, a lot of 90210's like level caliber actors and actresses, and
They wish.
they're all like young and pretty, but not very good at acting, that sort of thing. And so it's a very jingoistic, like over the top, like war film, but set in this kind of fascistic military, like kind of America on speed.
It's like Super World, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the premise, and you basically watch this group of friends go through the war machine and become grizzled veterans by the end, and fighting bugs and all this stuff. And in Verhoeven's style, because he does this in almost all his films, there's a lot of intercutting
Media clips.
Yeah, a lot of intercutting of the media, like news footage, like commenting on updates on the war and all this, and a lot of propaganda films and all this stuff mixed into it. And all right, so I kind of want to start. So I chose it initially as So Bad It's Good because in many ways, on its face, it is bad, but it's still a super entertaining movie because Verhoeven knows what he's doing. He knows how to make a good action, especially action sci-fi film, and so it hits a lot of those buttons, and it moves at a good pace. It's not boring. It's very like it keeps the action moving forward. And there's a lot of weirdness to it as well, again, in classic Verhoeven fashion. And he kind of always, even in his more like kind of mainstream films like Robocop, always things are a little like pushed a little far, a little like over the top into where they become kind of like campy a little bit.
And I think
buy that for $1.
And his team that he works with, part of it may be that he's not an English native speaking director, may sort of make the language he uses gets a little more cartoony because he's challenging that. Like he's just, it's like
I feel like
hyper realized, like us doing a bad accent. He's doing a bad American accent. in his movies.
It might be part of that, but I think that his writers are English speakers, so I think it's all consciously done. I have a feeling he grew up where his idea of American movies were these crazy over the top action war movies, and that's what he then makes.
That's what I'm
With
saying. So
a
when he's
very
giving
stilted dialogue.
direction, like you can carry like even a decent actor can carry a corny line in a way that's like not unbelievable, but he, like you're saying, he pushes it a little bit into the Mad Magazine like giant head version of that character.
I think because he's able to like create the the action suspense intensity, like it kind of like sells it, and that's why like a lot of his films have worked and on multiple levels, both like kind of mainstream action and also kind of with these elements of subversion mixed in.
Subversion is the good word
that
for it.
That make them like amusing. And I think in a way like Starship Troopers ended up coming into my mind as So Bad It's Good, and kind of like not being as successful as some of his other films for this reason, that like I feel like in a way he went like so far in that direction that like I think in a way this is like his greatest piece of satire, like where he nailed it so hard that like people became confused and like just saw it as a bad movie. And so because it cost like $100 million to make. This was a big budget movie, big special effects. It actually won awards for its effects.
And that's to pull that in too. So it's Phil Tippett's team, the same guys
Studio.
that worked on RoboCop with him.
Yeah,
And Phil Tippett worked on Star Wars, worked on Dragon Slayer.
He's a big special
he's
effects
been
guy.
around forever.
And there's the San Francisco based.
Yeah, and it didn't lose money, but it didn't make a ton. It like it ended up like grossed 120 million. So it was kind of a flop at that level a little bit.
It didn't really have the star power that even RoboCop was like a big time epic, but even Showgirls had like
I think RoboCop was a fluke that it ended up making a lot of money because it was a pretty low budget movie.
It's kind of middle.
I imagine it was second tier, but this was the one where they were like, "Oh, you made RoboCop? Let's throw money at you. You're gonna make something amazing."
Yeah, and he made something weird instead.
Yeah.
And and the other interesting thing is a lot of critics at the time like just thought it was a crappy movie and panned it.
Yeah.
And now, like, as again, I was looking online, like over time, people have kind of now like critics are looking back on it and saying like this movie. Cat attack.
Cats, what do you do?
You got a little cat fight going on here. So over time, people started looking back on it and saying, like, wait a second, like, this is Paul Verhoeven. Like, he's doing this shit on purpose, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's also very amazing. So he basically, and he, in his DVD commentary, he goes into this at length. Like, all of those choices were totally intentional. And he pushed everything super far on purpose. Like he was basically the whole movie is a satire on kind of American
war movies.
Yeah, and also on American like war mongering and jingoism, which there's been several periods in our history where we're all like and especially because there's a lot of parallels after like post 9/11 going into Iraq, like there's so many sort of parallels. But again, he pushes everything to an almost like especially for modern times, I feel like pushes things to an almost comical level to where I think it kind of loses its edge, but is also like, but then you kind of digest it as this corny action movie, and so it becomes like, and so you might start buying, like if you're of that mindset, you might be like, yeah, get those bugs, you know what I mean?
Right, the tropes are all there.
Right, or you can enjoy it on a more ironic level. I don't know.
I think that. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie. It's called The Green Berets. Stars. It's one of John Wayne's latest films, one of his last movies, and it was made intentionally to get people behind the Vietnam War. That's the purpose of this movie, and it's
a propaganda film.
Yeah, and this movie takes almost directly a lot of scenes straight from that movie, like so much of the same intention,
like the whole we're going over the top, boys. This whole
and that's what I love about it is it's kind of just spitting it back in our face, saying, "Oh yeah, you guys love this. Go ahead and keep watching." You know what I mean? It's so good for that reason. I just think it's an amazing movie.
It does actually
movie
call back to, I mean, the book it's originally based on, sort of in like a hodgepodge way.
Yeah.
It also deals with some of those issues because the commentary that Heinlein is dealing with in his book is at the base of it. I mean, it's a straight military futuristic sci-fi where it's very like, we have power suits, we take the space thing and we go and shoot these animals and kill them or whatever. And there's another race in there they call skinnies, and it deals with like faster than light travel. And there's actually another book that I want to talk about within this genre that's similar, but they kind of deal with just like, they don't fight much. They just kind of travel from here to here, and then they land on the ground and they've got their fight going on. But there's...
well, if you think about this movie, there's not an actual lot of fighting either.
Well,
But
the premise is that man's a wild animal and with no moral compass. They're just an animal. And at a certain, with like conceit of thought. And at a certain point, they're going to meet another species who is also an animal, and war is the inevitable outcome to that. And so it's a very cynical view that he's got. And the Heinlein sort of thing is that there are a handful of people who are evolved outside of just being wild animals.
Or sort of enlightened.
Who are like enlightened and are outside the circle, basically the circle of whatever. And those guys, through science or whatever, are going to find a way off the tread. And Starship Troopers is very much a movie about a book rather about the tread and the war. And the language he uses, like these taller, skinny aliens, non-bug aliens they run into, they call them skinnies. And there's this whole scene where they're like fighting in a skinny village, and it's straight like guys coming up on a Vietnam situation and killing these things. And the language and the tone is this, you could almost exchange it for gook or whatever in terms of being an epithet for a slang, a derogatory term for your enemy that you're going to that makes it even less than you, and therefore
even less personalized. Yeah.
And so that is something that, like you're saying, it's the same. Those tones are in what the book is written in a cynical way, and what Verhoeven is doing is in more of a satirical, almost like a thumbing your nose by like you're saying, feeding you exactly what you'd expect.
And this is like what year did you say this came out?
97.
Yeah,
97. This is like probably 10 years after all the Rambo movies and Commando and all these like just straight up Cold War movies. And I think the timing's perfect, and just these movies are great.
I think too, it's like another thing that makes it bad is like all the characters are like super vapid, and a lot of the plot that goes on, all their interactions is like very petty, and it's like high school drama kind of stuff. Like,
but these are high school kids, and those are people who go to war.
Yeah, but it's very uninteresting and lame, right? In terms of like making a good movie, right? I mean, to me, like that's part of what makes it bad.
If it were handled differently than this, then yes.
Right. Well, I think at the other side though, it's also, if you were making a movie in earnest about the prior to the 80s when you had those like hurrah hurrah, and after the Vietnam propaganda stuff, you had that period of time. Your Rambos arguably are kind of this, but you have these
the first Rambo was kind of a transitional movie
where it's people coming back, like the last Deer Hunter or whatever, where you have people coming back from war, and the harsh reality of that, the thing about, yes, if it was a movie about high schoolers and just the being ground into the dust by war,
it's a movie about.
But this is the shinier version of that.
You think going to war is great, and so you go to war, and when you come back, you're an adult, and suddenly, that's a theme that's.
I guess what I'm saying is this is in a
fresh
20 years prior to this movie, in 77. If this movie was being made in a more realistic setting, perhaps it would have been dealt with as you could make a serious drama about this, and it wouldn't be the shiny like high school. The 90210 thing is very much your bubble.
No, that's the thing. Even it's kind of like it is kind of about these kids getting like put through the war grinder, but at the same time they kind of keep their spirits up, and they're always like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it," even though they're really like just being thrown at these bugs and destroyed.
Well, I mean, they even say it. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris's character even says like, "Oh no, we knew that was a pretty low chance of survival on that mission. Sorry, you were in it." They even used that same terminology.
Yeah, they're expendable.
But back to
they're so like kind of brainwashed in a way that they're like, "Gee golly, I'm gonna do it again."
Right.
Like
aw shucks.
No. I mean, that Rico's character in the movie is just like, "Oh yeah, you guys just do the flying and we just do the dying, I guess." I mean, even he was cynical, but it was this kind of like, if we're gonna die, we're gonna take out as many bugs as we can, which is exactly the soldier kind of thing that you want from a soldier.
And that's like compared that to, this is another sci-fi book that's sort of contemporary to this, Joe Handelman's Forever War, and it's another sort of power suits.
Is it the same author?
Different guy. Joe Handelman wrote it, but it's called Forever War, and basically it's just super cynical people to the point where the war machine even recognizes how like shitty this whole thing is and how cynical it is. And a lot of they barely see combat, and it's just like their ships are firing missiles while they're still in stasis, and that's about as much combat as they see. And then they just kind of eventually,
so it's kind of more Cold Cold War-ish?
No, it's definitely combat, but it's actually more of an allegory about coming back from war, because what happens is these guys go on.
How can you come back from war if it's a forever war?
Well, that's the thing. So they go
It's
on these,
never over.
So it's like you're conscripted for 5 years or 4 years, right? So you go on an FTL drive and you're gone for 2 months. You come back, 10 years has passed for everybody else. You're disconnected from reality. Dude, you've only served a month. You haven't served 10 years. Go back out. And so you just like, so your 4 years is now time dilated. And
Weird.
so now everyone, it's how many 100 years past like every time you come back, society has moved past you in huger leaps than you would see in Vietnam or whatever. But that's what Forever War kind of deals with. It's another aspect.
Man. I love science fiction, you guys. That is
but what's
best.
that got to do with Starship Trooper?
Whatever, it's
Well, I
cool,
guess what I'm saying
man.
is like
It's another book I read.
no, but I guess what I'm saying is
It's a science fiction book about war. Okay?
Well, let me tell you guys about Ender's Game. You see what happens
well,
with...
but see, the difference is that in that is the extreme version, whereas the Starship Troopers that Heinlein was doing is a very like earnest, war. We're pretty
Grind.
straightforward. This one was a like, to the point where the entire process isn't aware of, this sucks. Like here, have your marijuana cigarettes. Well, you probably are all going to die. Good luck. And
And if you
then-
don't die, it doesn't matter because no one's going to be around.
So I guess
it's
it's like if you wanted to make a gradient, you have Starship Troopers of like, haha, the movie. You have Starship Troopers of Heinlein's, which is more in the middle, and then you have the Forever War sort of futuristic sci-fi. Like just three different ways of handling like gritty realism sci-fi.
Have we ever seen any? Have you ever read any sci-fi book or anything that is actually kind of pro-war? Because almost all sci-fi stuff is going to have this allegory.
Some people would argue that Robert Heinlein's Starship
there's
Troopers
moments-
is like, some people think it's like, it does come off as very like just fascist and
because part of
war,
that, right?
like,
Because part of that
pro-war.
is we're animals. Let's embrace it and fight.
Right, because it's all like, there's never any like kind of doesn't seem to be any commentary on it, and it's delivered, and it's definitely like this is a world philosophy, like a world view delivered. You know what I mean? And there's not like other characters countermanding it. It's just like this is it. Like, and there's characters which in a lot of Heinlein books he does that just basically
embody,
just talk. Just expose, like just like spell these ideas out like crystal clear. And I mean, I think that's kind of what makes him interesting. Is he's very like, a lot of it is controversial and very like
against
direct.
type almost.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a pretty good writer, even if a little crazy.
Some of his, when he gets further on and gets more, I mean, Scott Card, I would say, has this issue where as he writes more and more and his characters get developed and his storytelling starts to become commentary and philosophy evolved, and it just gets a little too
On the nose.
Yeah, it's a little rough, like hard to swallow. Scott Card just gets a little too like out there sometimes in his later books.
Yeah, a little too philosophical and kind of loses the story a little bit. Yeah. Well, coming back to Starship Troopers, I mean, he definitely like war for him has been a big thing. Like he grew up, I think, in Poland maybe, and during the like when he was a kid during the Nazi occupation, and that made a big impact on him. And so there's also like, because you mentioned the
Green Berets.
The Green Berets, but he also took stuff directly from
I'm sure
Nazi propaganda films, like direct echoes
From
and
the Leni Riefenstahl stuff.
yeah, and a lot of the uniforms and the symbols are all very like Nazi-esque. So there was a lot of on that. But we're kind of talking about all this heady intellectual stuff. But when you watch the movie, it just really feels like a dumb action, like in so many ways.
Well, that's what's so good about it. You're watching it the whole
Yeah.
time as a dumb action movie, not knowing that it's subversive. I mean, that the whole movie is
Right. I mean, you do know that it's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely campy but it's also just super fun.
yeah. Even if you are into like big action movies, this is there's some weird stuff.
But
going
it's
on
for
in
some reason it's super fun to watch for me. Like
Yeah,
it's just
me too.
very entertaining, and that's part of why. But a lot of it just is bad. Again, it's intentionally bad, but it's bad, and you kind of recognize that, but you still
walk
enjoy
down,
it.
like what. So just right on the face, like someone is sitting down with this, VHS that they got from Blockbuster, and they're gonna pop in Starship Troopers and watch
after
this thing.
stepping off their time machine. scene.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So hopefully it was rewound before you got it.
So they're
that's
they're
annoying.
watching Starship Troopers. What is the bad thing?
All right, the bad thing is
What are the bad things?
the acting, the dialogue.
Character interaction is really
The acting, the dialogue.
There's a lot of stuff that's really forced. A lot of like
very, very campy. Everything's very over the top.
And what's the name of the actress who's the I've blocked her out of my brain.
There's two love interests in it, right? There's
Not the
redhead.
Denise
not
Richards.
Dizzy.
Denise
Yes,
Richards.
Denise
Denise
Richards. She plays
Richards.
Carmen Ibanez.
Every scene she's in, you're just like, oh my gosh, I wish they had a different actress. It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
I can't believe she was ever in another movie after that.
And also, and like every Verhoeven movie, there's plenty of like sex and violence.
Yeah.
Like in the
Not
way
an
that,
awful lot of
But
sex.
there's boobs and blood. Like,
very little.
I mean, come on.
for a mainstream film, like to have nude scenes.
You want to see a new? Go watch the
But-
old.
but I'm
Go
saying-
watch the old like Police Academy.
But I'm saying like from like the kind of the way sex and violence is in a lot of Verhoeven movies. Like
Well, there was definitely graphic violence in this. Yeah.
Right. Like it's in a way that definitely puts it in kind of a more
it's not as much
B-movie kind of way, and
'cause
it's not artful.
Like it's not like a
artful or
Porky's like
Yeah.
wah, 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 kind of Benny Hill thing, and it's also not like an arty, Last Tango in Paris kind of thing. It's
No,
definitely like I got 3 boobs kind of moment, like Total Recall.
Yeah. But I will say that this movie, there's a specific scene where it's which is I think is really neat because it's in the future and men and women are just like
Right,
they shower
it's
together.
co-ed
They're in the
army,
military. Yeah.
I
And
think
so-
that was more the point of that.
Yeah,
scene,
yeah, which I thought was really cool,
But
even
come
as
on,
a
it was
kid.
titillation. Like it was.
Nah, not there.
But that's the thing. There's
Not that
always,
scene.
I think there always is an undertone of like the sex and violence like are to kind of like to reach your kind of like baser self and
Yeah,
to
it's like
titillate you.
core.
Like
Yeah,
I think he's
your
definitely doing
reptile
that.
brain.
Yeah, he's definitely going for that, and it's very strange because he does all of these things and he does them consistently, but at the same time, it's like he's kind of like in his mind making statements. He's kind of an
But
oddball.
That's the question.
director,
Are we
I think.
ascribing this to him, or does he
don't know.
actually? I mean, is he actually making?
Oh no,
these
no!
choices?
He purposefully made this movie with the.
I mean, or
I think
is he on-
mostly he's
or is he on the
definitely
back end?
anti-war. He's anti-war more than anything.
Right.
Like that's the only thing that's super clear is that he's anti-war and this
well,
is an anti-war
also, I
movie.
think it's almost a cautionary tale. It's like, listen, people can get wrapped up. He's from his point of view, I've lived through this. I was in Poland. Like, this is what it takes to get people to just not think about shit and shoot people.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it takes.
Yeah.
And this is what you should watch because this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it has happened since then. I mean, in our
Yeah.
lifetime, it has happened. And so, I think that's the real message behind this movie.
Yeah. But again, it's like it's very hard to watch it and feel like it has a message. And
Right,
it's
yeah.
like even having watched it many times, finding it hilarious. It wasn't until like I started kind of like thinking about it intellectually and reading about it that I was like, oh yeah, I guess kind of. But like I just saw it as like a ridiculous kind of campy movie.
Yeah.
So, I think
Which is that there are many levels to enjoy this movie.
But I think that's kind of the genius of it. I mean, that's definitely, I've always thought it was good, even though I recognize bad things about it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely not like the quintessential so bad it's good, but I recommend the movie and it's definitely one of my favorites.
Oh, it's definitely not a movie that's going to disappoint you.
And I thought it was hilarious. Like it made like a Slate had like a top, I mean, this was a few years ago, but they had like a top 100 movies and they put it at like number 20, which was outrageous because like it was ahead of some amazing movies, like,
It was ahead of E.T.
yeah, like some awesome movie was that like I think Iron Giant was number 99 or something. I'm like, come on, you guys. And I think Showgirls was even higher. It was like number 14 in the rankings. And I'm like, you guys are just crazy.
Slade, y'all are crazy.
Yeah. And I think their number one, and again, this is just to put the list in perspective, was The Thin Red Line. So it's like
a little timely.
So
huh?
like in the top 20, they have like borderline like camp
Yeah.
a camp weirdo movie, and then at number one, it's like the most artsy fartsy like
war movie ever.
yeah. So I don't know. It was a crazy list.
So before we kind of wrap this one up, when did you guys first see Starship Troopers?
I first saw it. I did not see it in the theaters. I
didn't
think
see it
I
in
first
the
saw
theater
it on video.
I had to have watched it on VHS, just like you described.
Yeah, I think I'd rented it, and then another video store was going out of business, and I bought it for $7, and that copy I watched over and over, and then I bought it on DVD, and it's great.
Was it your copy that we?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it in the clear shell? The clear shell,
squeeze
and you'd
box?
squeeze it
Yeah.
and it'd slide out.
Yep,
okay,
that was
good.
it.
Because I'm remembering that, and I'm like, okay, it must have just been your version.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the same deal. Like, but I think I did the Blockbuster off the wall thing because we would just get crappy crazies
Yeah.
in there.
Too
but-
bad though. All the sequels of this movie are so bad they're bad.
Yeah, well, and Phil Tippett, like I think, took those on. He did
No
produce them.
kidding.
Yeah,
Now, didn't he do?
He couldn't
Did
have
he
and,
do the
and
produced
they're
same
that.
basically B movies. He produced the second one for sure.
Did he do the same with RoboCop? Who directed those later ones?
I don't know.
I don't
The
know if it was
machine.
him.
Who knows? Those were just
Like,
those were toy
Oh,
machines.
come on, he flies in the third one.
He does. And guess what? They have an action figure of it.
Really cool.
there's there was a Japanese animated series of Starship Troopers.
I'm sorry,
in '88.
I have to stop you. We're talking about RoboCop. Therefore, I can segue into, thanks to Holt, I've seen this. Search Fatal Farm RoboCop on YouTube. Fatal Farm is a comedy
I
video
saw
troupe.
this.
And they were...
Don't say anything else. Just say that.
Well, they remade a scene from RoboCop.
Fatal Farm.
Fatal
RoboCop.
Farm,
We'll link to
RoboCop.
it in the
They
show
they
notes.
remade a scene from the original RoboCop, and it's genius.
Yes.
That's all I will say. And it's not safe for work.
And it's not safe for work or kids.
Or
Unless
most
you
people.
work with kids.
Unless you make
All right,
cartoons
all
for
right, so
kids.
sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, so
for that plug.
so what was I going on?
You said before we wrap up.
Oh, right. So we went into where people had watched it, right?
I'd watch what?
Where you'd first seen Starship Troopers.
Yes.
But there was there's an animated series that was released afterwards. Well, there's a Japanese one in '88, which was like short series. But
so
it's
are
just
these-
power suits, basically.
So that's based on the book, not the movie.
Right. That's based on the book. And then
So it was a feature?
there's a series of like shorts I never actually saw. It was called Uchu no Senshi with mobile infantry power armor designs by the guy who did Macross Robotech stuff.
Okay.
So, but they did a CG animated series after them that was supposed to be a little bit more book heavy, and so like more like dudes
In
fighting.
America, they made it?
Yeah.
And it was like late 90s CG?
Yeah, like late '90s, early aughts.
So it was like
It looked
Toy
kinda
Story.
crappy.
It was
right?
very crappy.
Yeah, okay.
I have it. We'll watch it.
Is it so,
so you're
crappy
saying
it's good?
It's not even good.
So you're saying it's
bad.
it's better than Toy Story?
Almost. Almost as good as Toy Story.
Perfect.
It's definitely better than The Incredibles. That fucking that piece.
Yeah. I'm still very confused about like how much how much it's based on the book and not, and when that
Right.
how that happened. Because I mean, I definitely remember like when it came out, I was like, what? There's no spacesuits, because like that was like the cool thing from the books that
Yeah.
you would want to like represent visually is that, and they were just like, oh, would have been too expensive because like this was like early days for
Yeah.
CG, you know, like
They spent a lot of it was the bugs were CG, and so that,
Yeah, and that-
they didn't come in contact except when they were like slicing and chopping and killing. for the
right,
most part.
and but again, like the bugs were like done on a big scale, kind of impressive, I guess.
Absolutely. I think they still hold up.
Yeah, they still hold up.
Well, the way he did it was Phil Tippett built these really interesting rigs at the time because they were 3D. They were actual maquette type.
They had done that for Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he was an animator
yeah,
on Jurassic
okay.
Park, and they brought him on for that. Very
and he
reason.
used a digitizer pen because he pretty much stop motion animated these things
Yeah.
and then captured that. Yeah.
Yeah, and their movement cool.
That was his process. There's a board game out there of Starship Troopers from this was based on the book, but it's a very weird play, sort of blind, where you set up traps as the bug, the humans do their thing, and you try to kill.
Is it so?
It's one of those like it's one of those games, almost like Stratomatic Baseball or something, where you really have to kind of love.
Oh yeah, that's a great reference. We all know what that is.
Stratomatic
yeah.
Baseball is basically like spreadsheet baseball that you would buy in a box, and like you'd do all the stats and roll some dice.
Wow,
and
this
figure it
sounds
out.
really awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so great. It's great. Stratomatic.
It's definitely not. It's a certain niche of game.
Yeah.
That I mean, it's the kind of like those guys who would sit there and like.
What else is it like?
Remember all the probably like magnetic football too, or whatever. What was that? Electronic,
vibrating table
electronic
football?
Yeah, no, it's very different, much more spreadsheety than that.
Oh, great.
So, but yeah, would you guys recommend this movie?
Absolutely.
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 All right,
How about you, Holt?
I would recommend this movie. Yeah, you should watch this. I think it's really good.
Do you think it's the best Neil Patrick Harris movie ever?
Tough one.
What is? I mean,
He was in that movie with Whoopi Goldberg.
Breakfast Club.
No.
He does seem to be the only one in the movie who seems to be in on the joke. Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, good.
Like
good call.
he's kind of the only one that's like, like seems to know that like this is kind of goofy and he's a little hammy.
I could argue that that Rico is in on it too, but he's just like I'm still going for it.
I don't think he is, man.
Yeah,
I don't think he is.
I want that guy to be so
sincere.
successful. I want that guy to be in every movie. He's so good. He was in this crazy Tarzan remake that went straight to video or something. That was not a good movie.
Yeah, I didn't. For some reason, I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, last thoughts. So, do you think, is it so good it's good on further discussion? Is that the problem?
I think it's kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
just
definitely
like war
not,
itself.
It's definitely that's right. It's definitely not like a clearly a so bad it's good movie. So it's not a great pick for the topic, but you could argue that it's in the ballpark, I guess.
So, where can people find and watch Starship Troopers? It's available on Netflix right now.
Netflix on demand, I
it's
think.
not anymore.
Oh, it just took off.
It got pulled. So sadly, currently right now, the only place I could find it is you can buy it on YouTube. And I think Vudu or something. It might be on Crackle.
It's not.
Sure.
I don't think it's on Crackle because I was just on there recently.
Bummer. Yeah, so it's just kind of in terms of like streaming. I mean, you can I'm sure you can get it on Blu-ray or DVD. And that's it. I think online right now.
Is it on iTunes?
You
Well,
can
I'll look in the show
maybe
notes
you
and
can
see
buy it
where
on
you can like
iTunes.
buy it and stream
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I looked on iconstream.it and it didn't come up for iTunes, but I didn't actually look on iTunes, so maybe that service.
I bet it's available on iTunes.
Yeah, you can definitely buy it, but like in terms of rental, I think the cheapest way you can get it legally is for like $7 on YouTube or Vudu. Otherwise,
Right.
But you can definitely see scenes from it online. Mm-hmm. And there is a riff track for the movie, so if you want an extra layer of hilarity on top.
So Riff Tracks, for those who may not know, is a few of the guys from Mystery Science Theater 3000 got together and they sell MP3s and some videos that you can tie in with movies that you're watching. So you can buy or stream Twilight.
Well, the idea is that they got in trouble in the old days for not being able to distribute movies that they were making fun of. So now they're just bypassing it by saying, hey, we're just selling the MP3s. You just push play and play at the same time.
So then you get to download these MP3s from Riff Tracks, watch them with the movie, and it's just great, like well-written, witty, MST3K style commentary.
So my bad, you guys. Starship Troopers is available on iTunes. You can rent it for $3.99 or buy it for SD. You can buy it for $3. You can rent it for $3 or buy it for $8 on iTunes as well.
Nice.
So that's probably your best bet.
Way to be on the ball, Jules.
Boom. Cool. All right. So let's wrap this segment up. So 1987 was not the year. 1997. Starship Troopers, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
And starring some people.
Yeah, starring a bunch of people. Neil Patrick Harris is
At
probably the
least Neil
highlight,
Patrick
and
Harris.
Denise
That's
Richards.
Well, also I love the drill sergeant guy. He was definitely in on it.
Yeah, he's been in.
He's
He was
the
in
bad
Total
guy
Recall.
from-
He was in a bunch of stuff.
Oh, he wasn't in Total Recall. No, the Rad Check. Rad Check was in Total
That's the
Recall.
guy I'm thinking
But
of.
the guy who was the drill sergeant was the bad guy from Highlander.
Oh, nice.
And he's in a voice in every DC cartoon. He's really good. Zim. His name was Zim. Sergeant Zim. But he had to bust down to private to go fight in
that's
the
right.
war.
Yeah.
But
And
the
he's
Buzz become a Rico's Roughnecks.
That's right.
All right.
I say kill them all!
You smash the entire area. You kill anything that has more than 2 legs. You get me? We get you, sir.
Let me tell you something. I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to season 2 of the first episode in the New to You show. Again, I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on the internet, on Twitter at Lord Joho. With me this week was
One of your other hosts, Keith Vincent. You can find me on Tumblr, earthlingkeith.tumblr.com.
And Julian Cage, aka Jules, aka at Beautiful Jules on Twitter, and Julian. Yeah, that's it.
that's the thing. So the New to You show is on newtoyoushow.com. ep201.com. You can find us on iTunes. Feel free to leave a review. Maybe we'll look into other streaming apps or whatever down the road for people. So I know there are other things out there that I don't know much about, but we might want to use. We have comments on our site, and we'll leave pictures and links that are relevant to what we were talking about this week, which primarily was the topic at hand, and Starship Troopers, the first pick in our So Bad It's Good commentary. Next week,
we're covering a book.
Yeah, we're going to cover a book and another book. One is a book with pictures, and the other one is a comic book.
Yep.
So
Sweet.
That's a pick with from me and a pick from
So for the
Keith.
literary set, So Bad It's
right.
Good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks. It may not be new, but hopefully it was new to you.
Bye-bye.
Pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.